Good to see you. Hello and welcome to this little video. Tonight, I wanted to share with you my Oracle deck collection. So, I don't think I've done this video specifically before. So it's brand new, it's not an update or anything. And for those of you who are curious, Oracle decks are like tarot decks, but tarot decks are created within a certain system. There's the major arcana, and then 4 suits of minor arcana, and the creator, the artist, may interpret that differently in each deck, but it's a set system. Whereas Oracle deck has no set system, so the artist or the creator makes their own system and attributes meaning to cards in different ways, and they can contain really anything. It's much more elastic as a form. So tonight we'll be focusing specifically on Oracle decks. I'll do a tarot deck collection video shortly. So I think of my Oracle decks in 3 different categories. There are the all-rounders, which are good for any situation. Then there are decks that are a little more specific, and then there are decks that are highly specific, much more specific. So I'm going to break it into those 3 categories, show you the decks, show you the art, talk a little bit about my experience with each one, and that's about it. I hope you enjoy this video, and we will get started. The first deck is the Fuzzy Prism Oracle from Holly Simple. The backs look like this. Really gorgeous. So this is a deck that I picked up, I think, all the way back in 2016 when I first started getting more into tarot, like really getting into it. I love the artwork. I remember doing a reading with her tarot deck on this channel, and someone said the artwork really freaked them out. But I love how it's kind of creepy, kind of childish. I find it really inviting and lovely to read intuitively. It has simple keywords, so you can interpret it however suits the reading. There's a lot of applications for each of these cards, and I just love her artwork. This deck also smells really strongly of incense because I kept it in a box with some sandalwood incense, so that smell now reminds me of this deck. Another deck that you've probably seen on this channel that's an all-rounder is the Poesis deck. The backs look like this, and it's quite a thick deck. The cardstock is really thick, and it has this matte gold edging. The cards also have a rose petal finish, which just means that the cards have been rubberized, so they feel kind of soft. And this deck I think I got maybe 2 years ago. Again, it's an all-rounder. The keywords are really simple and open to interpretation. I like this deck because it's a nice deck to read intuitively, and it feels both emotional and psychological, and I really like that combination. I find a lot of the keywords really lovely gratefully, like I'm glad to have them in the deck, like Shadow, for example, and then the artwork is so great. Or let's see, Test, I really like as a card, just like as a concept to have within the deck. Simplify, love it. Yeah, it's just a really solid deck. I feel like it's a good deck for creatives as well. Creatives, intuitives. There's something just a little bit dreamy about it. And I love this card. I actually have a print of this, or like a poster of this. Yeah, there's something a little dreamy about it. So, just a really good deck for many situations. That is Poesis. Next we have two decks from the same creator, but I'll show them individually. So this is the first one. I'll just show you side by side the other. This is the Seashell Oracle, and then this is the Crystal Oracle. So the Seashell Oracle looks like this. The back, there's a tiny shell here, little outline. Matches my nails. This is a collage deck, so different artworks and kind of botanical or botanical illustrations of the natural world are collaged together to create these cards. It's a matte cardstock, and they do stick together just a little bit. I think will hopefully get better over time. But I just love this artwork. I love the title of each card and how it has its own 3 keywords below it. Just really romantic, I think, and beautiful. Really nice. It offers a really nice connection to the natural world. Just a lot of beauty in it. Between the elements from the sea, the flowers, and the artwork, the people. This card, I love this composition. I think the collage artist is really talented. And so is the guidebook writer, who I believe is a different person. The guidebook is good, but the cards are the main draw here, I think. And I have to say too, I really appreciate that all of these words are the same part of speech. A pet peeve of mine is when the keywords in a deck, like 80% of them are nouns, and then one of them is like a verb or an adjective. It drives me crazy, especially when the part of speech did not need to be changed. That just drives me crazy. So anyway, this one's really well made and I adore it. As a sister deck to that, we have the Crystal Oracle, as you saw already. Different colored backs and also a slightly different design, which feels a little too iconic to me, like icons. This one feels a little nicer, a little more timeless. This feels like a little young to me. Like, I feel more that these are emoji, say, than that seashell. So, although I love the color and the design has grown on me, this back almost kept me from getting this deck. I would have much preferred a gem, just one with the outline like the other deck, but I don't regret getting this deck at all. This is a strange card to start with. It's very particular. It's like a special card in the deck for gastrolith, a stone in the stomach of an animal that helps grind things up, helps you digest something. So we have surprise, rumination, and acceptance. This deck is like a slightly witchy, slightly darker mood to the other deck. The other one feels more like spring and summer. This one definitely feels more like winter to me. I love the use of crystals in it. I had been wanting a crystal oracle deck, but I just never found one that really grabbed me. A lot of them to me felt more like flashcards, like, okay, here's this stone and then here's keywords for it, but it's more like technical specs, like for study of the stone, which is also cool, but just not what I wanted. I wanted something that felt artistic and like beautiful and poetic almost, and this deck does that so well. Just in spades, we have beauty here, beautiful compositions again, like a little bit of mystery in some of the obscured faces, which I really love. And I love the color palette of this. It's really up my alley. So that's the Crystal Oracle. We then have this tiny little guy called Terra Incognita. So these are the backs. I love the backs more than I can say. This green color, this plant, the marbleization, just so good. And they have some silver edges here. So this deck is based on found photography, found art. A man, last name is escaping me, but his last name is escaping me, but his first name is Carl, or was Carl. He took photos, kind of tin type photos of plants a long time ago, and then this artist repurposed those photos to make this oracle deck. I also, similar to the crystal deck that I had been searching for, couldn't find the right interpretation. Similarly, I had been searching for a plant deck of some sort, plant oracle deck, and I tried a few, played with a few. They weren't really clicking with me. I wanted something, again, a little more beautiful or poetic, a slightly witchy or like moody vibe to it, and this deck does that, and I was so happy when I found it. Yeah, I got this for Christmas from my partner. I thought it was sold out and out of print, like never to be reprinted, and I was a little bummed that I had missed it. I mean, more than a little bummed. I was really bummed, but I was trying to let it go. And then I found out that he bought one of the last copies for me as a Christmas gift, even though I had just mentioned it like in the quickest of instances, like in passing. He picked up on it and got it. Another thing I love about this deck is the guidebook. So I do think you can read these pretty intuitively. The keywords are so rich and a little witchy again. Like there's one in here called Hex, for example, or for example, Invocation, Sigil, Totem, you know. But anyway, the guidebook expands really beautifully on these cards and adds a lot of depth to the experience of reading with them, and so it just absolutely exceeded my expectations, and I'm really, really grateful to have it. For our last all-rounder, we have this deck. This is the Dark Goddesses Oracle. The backs look like this. This is a mass market, so it's pretty easy to pick up, pretty affordable. I was a little interested in like a goddess oracle deck, but a lot of them were really expensive or really, I don't know how to describe it, but just had an aesthetic that was not at all my own. Like a little too dreamlike, I would say, or too ethereal, too fairy-like sometimes. I wanted something with a little more weight to it. And because this one was mass market, I decided to take a chance on it. I didn't love the production of the box it comes in, but I do really like the artwork. I forget the artist's last name, but her first name is Caitlin. And I love the way these cards look. I go back and forth on whether I think it's a diverse deck or not. There are many different ages, face shapes, races, and bodies in this deck, but they are all done in her style, which, you know, the lips are different card to card, for example, but they all have pretty full lips, for example, or they all have clear skin, they all have, you know, different shaped eyes, but biggish eyes, smallish noses, you know, so I go back and forth on whether I think it is diverse, but I have really enjoyed working with it. I do think it's beautiful, and I like the diversity of thought that it includes, the diversity of myth and of legend that it includes. So this is a new deck to me. I think it's my most recent deck, in fact, so I'm still getting to know it, but yeah, I think it's worth taking a look at if that's something that interests you. I don't regret the purchase, for sure. So it's been a good addition to my collection. Next up, we have more specific decks, and the first of those will be the Pixie Oracle from Spirit Speak. It's a whole line of decks by a wonderful woman named Mary Evans, and these are what the backs look like. This nice cloud print. There's like a beautiful lustrous matte blue edge as well, and they're circular, as you can see. So they do get turned around every which way. I just did a reading with these three actually, but this is, I guess, a kind of collage deck at the end of the day, and it feels very young and fresh to me in the best of ways. It's a little kooky, a little otherworldly. It feels like going to karaoke with your friends. It feels like going to brunch with your friends. It feels like a sleepover with your friend. Or friends, rather. Should have more friends at our sleepovers. It's just so fun and like a party, but also really introspective at the same time. And there is a grittiness or like an earthiness to some of these cards that I find really interesting as a note. Some of the prompts or the keywords I love, like this card here. Nope, but that one's great. Rumination. Where's the card that I love? This is it, I think. Yeah, clear as a bell. I love this card. So this deck you can read intuitively, of course, but it also opens up so much when you read the guidebook. Guidebooks from this creator really feel like talking to a friend or a cool older cousin or a wise older sister. They're really beautiful and special and of her. And I don't have all the decks she's done. I don't need them all. Some of them would just not fill a hole in my collection, like they would feel like duplicates to things I already have. But I really think you can't go wrong with anything she's made. It's all art to me. So, highly recommend checking this one out. Then we'll talk about Motherwitch. So the backs look like this, and the fronts, like, just look at these colors. I love this color story so much, and I love the crudeness or like the casualness of the ink drawings on the cards. I also love the concepts of these cards. I find this deck hard to read with, like I really need the guidebook for it, and I think that will improve as I use it more. I've not used it much yet. The cards are really gorgeous. The deck is also, I believe, pretty overpriced. I love this card though. Princess of Denial. It's overpriced. I think it's twice as much as it should be. There's not so many cards in this deck. The cardstock has already bowed a bit, if you can see, and I really haven't used it much at all. So it's gorgeous, but I'm just, I wasn't super impressed with the quality of the cardstock. The price is high. Even if the cardstock were great, the price is a little high given how few cards it includes. And yeah, so I got it on Supra sale. Otherwise I would not have purchased it. But even on Supra sale, it was still on the higher range of like what I feel comfortable spending on a deck. That said, again, it is gorgeous, but the price I think has stuck with me a bit because it's made by Natasha Khan from Bat for Lashes, a music group, and I like her, but I just felt like maybe the deck wouldn't have been so expensive if it hadn't been made by a person of note, like a celebrity essentially. So I have mixed feelings about this deck. I still love it, but I'm finding myself having to warm up to it a bit more than anticipated. Next up is this deck. It's called the Supra Oracle from Usi. That's UUSI. They are a creative duo based in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, I believe, which makes me extra fond of them. This is what the backs look like. Some of my family's from the UP, that's why. So, this deck you may have seen before on my channel. It's super psychological. It works off principles by Carl Jung, and so if you're into like Myers-Briggs or anything like that, you'll notice like we have thinking, feeling, intuiting, and sensing, for example, which all make one great big labyrinth. We also have some sacred geometry cards. I love this. And I have a print of one of these cards. I'll show you when I get there if I notice. This deck is beautiful. It's beautifully made. I love everything that Usi does, and I love having this deck. It is a deck that I personally struggle to read intuitively. I find I benefit a lot from studying the guidebook. I love this card, Improbability, and I love this card, Nothing. So yeah, I can read them intuitively, but it goes so much deeper if you crack open the guidebook. So that's often what I do. It feels like a very smart deck, and I learn a lot from it. And I just think the artwork is freaking gorgeous, could not be improved upon. And let me see if I can find my card I have a print of. Oh yeah, here it is. I have a print of this card. Unconscious. The unconscious. So, it's a great deck that also feels a little complex at times, which is both its complication and its benefit or its gift. Next up are two decks that are super personal to me. So I rarely use them on this channel, but I did use this one on my New Year's reading. So this is Outgrow Yourself by Octus Spawn. This is what the backs look like. Kind of dizzying when you fan it out. And then this is the artwork. So this is technically a tarot and an oracle. The tarot part is based on the Thoth system, which I don't really use, and I currently don't really care to get into. Maybe later I'll change my mind, but because I'm not familiar with that system, I mostly use this as an oracle deck. I also use it as an oracle deck because the oracle deck aspect of this creation, this project, is so good. Such a clear reader, so on the nose every time. You only fail when you stop trying. Be patient, things are set in motion. Let's see. Now is the time. Opulence is a state of mind. Begin with yourself. Why do you ask what you already know? So I just love the oracle part of this deck, and I'm always really satisfied with using it in just that way. I love the artwork. I love these women. There's a rawness to them, a beauty, I think with the colors, like a real vitality, but they also clearly represent limitation as much as they also represent growth. And so just really speaks so directly to me. This card, don't invite everyone to your castle. I freaking love it. I just love it so much. It's really reasonably priced for being an indie deck. And I think the messages don't get much better than this, and the art doesn't get much better than this either. You already have everything you need. It's just phenomenal. Definitely one of my favorite decks between Oracle and Tarot. Just one of my favorite decks of all time. Alright, and then we have the Iris Oracle. Another deck that's really personal to me. So this is what the backs look like. This is another Spirit Speak deck, so the same as the Pixie. And this one for me, I immediately know the image. I know, I can feel what it means, but again, it's a more specific, if you will, deck for me where where I do benefit a lot from reading the guidebook entry that corresponds to the card. So I almost always do. I think this deck, I've heard that this deck is really powerful for people with who have had difficult childhoods, who have inner child work to do. I also think it's a really powerful deck for creatives and for anyone who feels like intuitive and really open to the world around them. There's a kind of truth telling here that's really interesting to me. It's sweet and sometimes nostalgic, but also pulling no punches. It's very direct, which I think is also represented pretty clearly in the style of the artwork too. Like there's a crudeness to the way the colored pencil was used. It's almost unfinished, or sketchy, like a little bit like a first draft. It very much feels like a deck that came from a singular person with a singular point of view or vision that wants to have some kind of conversation with you about your dreams, your dreams, your aspirations, your hang-ups, shadow work, your childhood, all of that. And the colors are just wonderful. Like, there is a nostalgic factor here for sure. So, this card, I love Everything You Need Too Soon. Like a sim, when you play The Sims and use the cheat code, you have all the simoleons, and then you're like, oh, at least for me, I would be like, oh, spending, and I'd be like, oh, you know what, this game is kind of boring now. Maybe it's good to not have everything too soon. Everything you want too soon. So, yeah, really beautiful, really singular deck. Alright, we have 4 more decks. They are what I would call the super specific decks, I guess I would say. So these are all for like highly specific purposes. The first one I'll show you is this one. It's called Your Wise Animal Body by Serpent Fire, I think is her company's name. It has these purple edges, really gorgeous. And this is a deck where I absolutely must read the guidebook, because the guidebook knows so much more than I do about these cards. This is a somatic deck, so it has cards based on different manners of somatic healing or somatic awareness. So how to be in your body, how to be more present, how to soothe your nervous system. And I love the colors. I love the font and these semi-futuristic, semi-retro images that accompany them. I love this card, Ebb, and I love this card, Washover. So it's just a really gorgeous deck. The cards themselves are a kind of matte finish, and I just think it's gorgeous to look at, and I am so happy that I have a deck that is solely focused on helping me and helping others connect to their bodies, slow down, relax, and heal. So it's a great deck. We then have this deck. It is mass market, so it's super affordable, and it's called the Oracle of the Radiant Sun. The backs look like this. It's a smaller card. I guess it's about the size of the Terra Incognita, more or less. and it's quite a thick deck. There's a lot of cards in here. So this deck has sort of vintage style illustrations. I don't know if I'd say collaged, maybe it is collage, but composed together. These interesting diagrams based on different instances of certain astrological elements, like astrological features, if you will. So this is Cancer and Venus, birth, and here's our image. This one is Capricorn and the Sun, achievement. We have Cancer and Mars, quarrel. So the system really makes sense to me, and I find this deck to be a really good predictive deck. So instead of illuminating something loosely, it can, it wants to predict events, it wants to foretell things, and you can glean some interesting information or narratives with different combinations of these cards. I love the compositions. They feel like they're in diagrams almost, like you'll see repeating framing effects, like this one has a diagonal, as does this one. Right here we have like a half circle shape and a square, and you see that one too. This one has a smaller rectangle down here. Like these two have the same frame, and this one, or these two have the same frame. So I just think there's a lot to dig into here. I don't really often, I really infrequently do predictive readings, so it's not a deck I reach for a lot, and I also don't have a great need for predictive decks for that reason. But when I am feeling like doing that style of reading, this is always what I go for, and I really enjoy it. I really like the retro kind of look that it has. Maybe not retro, maybe slightly vintage or antique style illustration. It's just a delight, really. So again, it's mass market, super affordable, and I'm really glad that I have it. Then we have Wild Unknown Archetypes. It's another circular deck. I just have the two. The backs look like this. It's a kind of diamond image, but if you look closely, I don't know if you can see, it's almost as though it's been Xeroxed. You can see some intentional pixelation here, and these backs have really grown on me. I also love to shuffle this deck. It is a little difficult to shuffle around a deck, but there is such a lovely weight to this deck, and it shuffles really beautifully for me. It's like beautiful and simultaneously like a little clunky because of the weight it holds, but I really enjoy the tactile feeling of shuffling it. So this is an analog collage deck, or more than collage, I would say it's a kind of like mixed media deck. Like I believe that was a real coin in the original artwork that made this card. This deck was made by Kim Krans, who made the Wild Unknown Tarot. I appreciate the place that the Wild Unknown Tarot holds in, you know, the kind of like resurgence of tarot decks and like modern depictions of the tarot cards. I think it holds a very cool place in that history, but I just never ever got even close to connecting with it. I've never owned it. I've never wanted to. But you see it everywhere, and When I saw this deck, on the other hand, by the same creator, I felt really drawn to it, and it just delivers the most gorgeous messages that are really powerful, really big. I think this deck taps into, it's literally a collection of archetypes, and it taps into this really big energy, kind of timeless. It has a timeless reach and like a cosmic scope, I want to say. It just feels so big, and I love everything it has to say. The guidebook is beautiful. I would say I can read these cards somewhat intuitively, but because the guidebook is so gorgeously written, is so detailed, so informative, so generous in what it gives, I never pass up the opportunity to read the guidebook. I think this is also a super specific deck for me because I don't pull these cards often. I like to pull one for the month or one for the quarter, one for the year, and then really think about what that archetype has to teach me, to show me. There's also an intro in the guidebook about Kim Krantz as a person, as an individual, and what season of life she was in when she made this and how the project began. And I found that really personal and moving, and again, just really generous and authentic. So I just love this deck so much, so much. And I'm so glad that it exists, not just for me, but for everyone. It's mass market. It comes in a beautiful big box with a smaller, circular, almost like jewelry box-esque box. The guidebook is phenomenal. It just exceeds every expectation you might have. So I highly recommend this one. Okay, so those are all of my oracle decks at present. I'm feeling very satisfied with my collection right now, so I don't anticipate getting any more anytime soon, which is in part why I wanted to film this video tonight for you. I hope you enjoyed this video. I had fun doing it, and I hope you're doing super, super, super well. And if you're not, that is okay too. I will talk to you very soon, and until then, good night, good night,